Now we are going to move on to creating bank accounts and entering opening balances, and we'll be looking at two methods of doing so. Looking at two methods of creating the bank accounts and opening and entering the opening balances. So to create an account in QuickBooks, we'll go to chart of accounts. You can access it on the home screen under the company section of the home screen, or you can access it from the menu bar. You can click on company and select chart of accounts. Here you are going to be basically adding accounts. So to add an account, you're gonna right click on a blank area and you're gonna select new. You're gonna right click on a blank area, or you are going to click the account button, click the arrow and the account button to the bottom left of the screen, and you are going to click new, and this will take you to the screen where you create your bank account. We have created two bank accounts, right, and we want to create another bank account just for demonstration purposes. Alright, so you're going to select bank. You're going to select, you're going to select bank for the type, then you're going to enter the name. Let's use NCB. And you can just, for security purposes, enter the last 4 or 5 digits of the account. Alright, so these accounts need to be sub under the broad account called bank and cash. So we have created a sub account called bank and cash, and we're going to sub NCB Tuck Shop under the account bank and cash. Alright, so once we have created that sub, we can enter the opening balance here. So we're going to enter the opening balance as at the 31st of August, and let's say this account has 700,000. Right, and you're gonna select save and close. So whenever you create an account and enter an opening balance in QuickBooks, QuickBooks will basically pass the journal entry in the background. Or any transaction that you do, the journal entries are passed in the background. So to look at the entries, we go to reports, accountant, and taxes, and we go to journal. That's where you go to see all your journals. And what you're seeing on the front is just for ease of use, but this is what happens behind the scenes. So these are the journal entries as a result of what we did. So there you have the $700,000, which is a debit to the Tuckshop account and a credit to opening balance equity. You can actually do these entries manually if you create a bank account and did not enter an opening balance at the time of that account creation. So if you have not entered a balance while creating the account, you will have to manually pass a journal such as this. Right, and to pass the manual journal, you would basically go to company and you go to make general journal entries. And I know that some institutions have their own journal book or their own journal control number system. QuickBooks will default to journal number 1 if it's the first journal and it keeps counting, but you can enter whatever number you want to enter here. So we started at JV001 and now this one auto populates JV002. So let's populate the account to pass the entry. So for instance, you're doing an entry for, let's say, the canteen account. Which we already did an entry, but I'm just demonstrating how the entries are actually passed. And that's $1 million. So to do that journal manually, you would debit the canteen account with $1 million. And you would credit the opening balance equity. And QuickBooks auto populates the credit side of the entry once you enter the debit first, and vice versa. So a narration is very important. So we're gonna say, for audit purposes, entry to record opening balance. And the class is very important. You should select the class for every transaction. Because that will ultimately affect your reporting. If you don't select the correct class, you won't be able to get proper reporting by class. So once you have done that, you would select save and close. So now we see the bank accounts here, and we are seeing a total of $3.7 million here for bank and cash. We have created 3 bank accounts, and as I explained in the first session, that sub accounts basically feed into the parent account. So any total that is in the sub account forms a part of the parent account. It's like a parent-child relationship. So this bank and cash is the overall cash that the institution would have. So basically you can just look at a statement and you see the total funds that the institution would have at a particular time. So that's why it is important to do the sub. Okay, so now we're going to be looking at budgeting, and the first section we're going to look at is to create a budget as per the Ministry of Education sample budget. Alright, so we'll be creating a budget as per the Ministry of Education sample budget, and you would go to company and you go to planning and budgeting, and you're going to click on set up budgets. Once you go planning and budgeting, on the company you're going to click on set up budgets, and you're going to create a new budget. So by default, based on your fiscal year, the budget will actually pop up as 2022 to 2023. So because we have selected August 30 as August 31st, I should say, because we have selected August 31st as the end of our financial year, it means that our budget will now, the budget that we'll be now working on would be the 2022 to 2023 budget. If the fiscal year was standard, meaning that if it was ending the 31st of December, then you would not see a dash. It would be just 2022 that you'll be seeing here. But because it laps over a 2-year period, it means that you will see 2022, 2023 in QuickBooks. And budget is a forecast, therefore it is prepared in the future. So you will not be seeing 2021, 2022 budget when you come here by default. You will not see 2021, 2022 when you come here by default. However, if you are late in preparing that budget, then you can click the drop down icon here and you would be able to create a 2021 2022 budget. But normally, where budgeting is concerned, and as I know as a requirement of the Ministry of Education, that budgets are submitted way in advance. I'm not sure of the exact date, but I know that, for example, budget for the following year would be due around October, right? So you'll be basically creating a 2022 budget now and not a 2021 budget, because the 2021-2022 budget would have already been approved and you would start getting the funding from the ministry based on that budget. So creating a 2022 budget, you click up, and budgeted can be created way in advance, because a budget can be over a 2-year period, over a 3-year period, but I know the schools don't operate that way. So let's look at the creating a 2022-2023 budget. And you're required now to choose the budget type, and the budget type that we're going to be creating here is a profit and loss which would be an income and expenditure statement, because schools are non-profit organizations. Well, public schools, that is, are non-profit organizations. I know we may have private schools part of the session, but most all public schools are not for profit. So we are going to select profit and loss, and there are criteria that we can add to this budget. And because we are creating this budget based on the Ministry of Education, because we are creating this budget based on the broad Ministry of Education budget, we will select no additional criteria. So once you have done that, you're going to select next, and you can basically create a budget from scratch if you don't have, if you are just starting, in fact, if you are just starting to use the system, you will be required to create the budget from scratch. If you were using the system before, therefore you are not a new QuickBooks user, you can create the budget from your previous year's actual data. So instead of you creating the budget by entering manual information, you can just create the budget by using the data for the previous year and adding a percentage to that data to increase those amounts. Right, so basically once you have done so, the amount would be populated based on the criteria that you are, based on the percentage that you want to increase the different items by. Right, so that gives you, that takes less time to create the budget when you create based on the previous year's actual data. But in this case, when persons are just starting to use the system, there's no historical data for you to do this. So you won't be able to go in QuickBooks and say, well, generate the budget based on this. So what you will need to do now is to create the budget from scratch. And creating the budget from scratch is what we are going to select here, and then we're going to click on finish. Once we click on finish, what will pop up here is all the accounts that you have created in the previous class. And what I want you to do is to create a budget for about $10 million. So $10 million income, $10 million expenditure, and this budget should balance. Alright, so if we should say subvention grants, and I must say that QuickBooks has a little calculator built inside, where once you click in a field and you press equal, you are able to do simple mathematical calculations. So I just use QuickBooks to actually divide $5 million by 12 to get the monthly amounts. So what I'm going to do next is to click the copy across button here, and there you'll get $5 million. You are seeing a 0.04 there, and that is a rounding error. So that is immaterial, and that won't be a big issue. So you can go ahead and do some more I mean, I'm gonna leave it up to you to basically put in the amounts that you want to put in for the different items, but this budget should total $10 million income, $10 million expenditure. It should balance. So you can put in whatever values you wish to. You can use all the line items on the budget if you wish, but end of the day we should arrive at $10 million. So you click on copy across, and there you have $10 million in income. And in terms of expenditure, we need to do the same thing. Okay, so I have only created one line item. So what I'm going to be doing is if you made an error with a line, you can just input 0 and click copy across. Okay, and I want to break this out. Copy across. So there we would have basically a balanced budget. 10 million income, 10 million expenditure. And that is basically a demonstration of how you would have done it. But you need to, for the real QuickBooks file that you're going to be using for your institution, you need to populate all the fields with the correct data, populate all the line items. But for training purposes, we just need to have this budget at $10 million, and you are going to use whatever line items that you want. Okay, so I'm gonna select save, and then I'm gonna select OK. And to look at this budget, I'm going to go to reports, and I am going to go to budgets, and I'm going to go to budget overview, and I'm going to basically generate my budget overview. And the budget overview is where you would basically look at your budget. You can print it. You can, in fact, you can export this to Excel, format it, and submit it to the Ministry of Education for approval. So this is one example of how QuickBooks is making your life easy. Please ignore the differences, that negative 0.12, that is a rounding error, and if you are doing your budget, you can fix that easily. So your budget should be balanced, and we can actually, this is a month to month or month by month. So we can actually show the entire year by clicking. We have show columns, click on year, and you will see the budget for the entire year. So this is something that you would want to export in generating your budget to send to the Ministry of Education. So the starting point, the new starting point that you all should be starting at now is basically to start doing your budget in QuickBooks, not to do it in Excel then enter it in QuickBooks. Your line items will be in QuickBooks, so you'll be entering your budget in QuickBooks, then you export this budget to Excel. So Excel is not the primary source of your data entry. Excel just facilitates formatting your reports. So no more Excel data entry, right? We're going to use QuickBooks to do budgets going forward. Alright, so that is how you would have generated a budget based on the MOE's requirement. But we have other budgets that we need to generate. We may have more internal budgets such as the tuck shop budget, the canteen budget, and other budgets. QuickBooks actually allows you to create a budget based on each of the classes that we have created. So we can use class as a criteria to create a budget. So if we want to create a budget for a tuck shop, we can create a budget for a tuck shop. So basically what we are going to do now, and it is the same procedure to create the budget, is just that we are going to select to add additional criteria. So to create a budget for so we're going to look at creating a budget by class now. To create a budget by class, you will still go to company and you'll go to planning and budgeting, and you'll still go to set up budget, and this time we're going to create a new budget, and it's still a P&L budget, profit and loss budget. We're going to select next, and where you have additional criteria, we're going to select class, then we're going to select next. Right, if you have already created a budget, it will tell you that a budget already exists. So if once you have created a budget and you try to do another budget, it will tell you that the budget actually exists. So we're going to select 2021 where we have not done one, and we're going to select class, and we're going to click on finish. Alright, so basically this is creating a budget based on class. So you select the class that you want to create the budget for. In this case, we're going to select tuck shop, and what you'll basically be doing is to populate information here, look for the relevant going to be looking for the relevant tuck shop account that is on the Ministry of Education budget, and I think that would fall under, so we need to be looking at profit from income generating activities. So you would have add this in your chart of accounts. You have tuck shop here, So B2.2 can be added as income. Then your temporary salaries and so on would still be relevant. You don't need to create any additional accounts on your chart of accounts to accommodate the tuck shop. Everything can be integrated in this same budget, and you just use class for reporting purposes. So in this case, you would look for the relevant. It's just like doing the overall budget, but you just look for the relevant line items that would be relating to the tuck shop or whatever department that you are basically creating the budget for. A budget can be created for your academic department, such as your science department, mathematics department, but you'd have to first have those as a class, which we're not going to go so deep. But what I really want is for you to get the whole idea of creating class and the whole idea of creating the budget based on class. So we are going to select save. And we're going to select OK. Alright, so I think we have covered budgeting. For your assignment, I'm not going to require that you do a budget based on class. What I would want you to do, or what you'll be required to do, is to basically create the general budget based on the Ministry of Education sample that was uploaded. So you're going to populate those items and create the budget overview. So the assignment is basically to create the budget based on the Ministry of Education, and it's a 10 million budget that you are creating. So you're going to be creating a budget for $10 million. Use the line items that you wish, and secondly, the bank accounts need to be created. So you need to create three bank accounts, and when you create those 3 bank accounts, the totals that I want everybody to be on the same page as it relates to totals. So the totals that I want you to have for the bank account, for bank and cash, is 3.7 million. So it doesn't matter what you want to call the bank accounts. We just need to have 3 bank accounts, and one of the accounts should be 1 million, 1 2 million, and 1 700,000. Okay, so we, as a matter of fact, as long as the accounts are sub, what is important for me is that the total of these 3 bank accounts adds up to 3.7 million, which is 3,700,000. So the amounts can also vary between the accounts in doing the assignment. So for the assignment, a $10 million budget, and bank and cash 3.7 million. Okay. So we have come to the end of this session. Thanks for watching.